hours talking to the police, and they started to mistreat me, and I started to believe that they were not going to give me any help. I was not getting help there. They were just trying to suppress me. And I mean, I guess I needed it at that point. But they injected me with whatever drug that they did each time to get me to calm down. And then I stayed in the hospital for, I think, 3 days the first time. And I don't even want to get into depth of the hospital, but basically they are designed to make you feel like you're supposed to be there. I did not get help. I had a routine, which was helpful. I had healthy food, and I had a couple of activities to do. But as far as getting therapy, I talked to a doctor for like 15 minutes a day, and that was it. And it was mostly just like, well, you were having a weed psychosis, and that's what's wrong with you. And I was like, no, there's some other things that I really want to talk about, like my rape story, which was a whole nother part of this that got brought up again because I realized a lot of things that happened to me following kind of like a suicide attempt. Everyone thought it was, but there was actually foul play. My neighbor and landlord next door where I used to live, I know, did something to me that night, and that's a whole nother story that I have explained in one of my other videos. But I started to think about this, and that was part of me freaking out, I guess. And I told the doctors that I wanted to talk about my rape story because I had not told anyone yet about it. And they didn't listen to me. They didn't care. They didn't want me to talk about it. They just wanted me to basically take the medicine that they were prescribing me and do what they told me to do. And if I got upset, like, that wasn't okay. Like, anytime that you got mad or anytime that if you got emotional, it was like a demerit. Like, I had my phone privileges taken away after trying to remedy something that I did the third time I went to the hospital, and they wouldn't let me talk to anyone. They make people just a number. That's what I was. And I tried to tell them that I think that out of all the mental disorders, I think that I have dissociative identity disorder. I've been studying this for a long time, like just psychology in general, and it interests me, but I have always kind of thought that my upbringing, I had an abusive childhood, I had some bad stuff happen to me when I was a kid, and happened to a lot of people in my family, which was also another part of this breakdown. Someone else in my family had told me that this had happened to them, and it was really hard for me to take in, and I was really upset about it, and that was why I wanted to get people to understand how hard it is to be a woman, and how we don't have equal rights, and how our bodies shouldn't be looked at like they're pieces of property or things that can be controlled, and just how the entire clothing industry and just everything that we do to suppress women, and like how our nipples are supposed to be against the law and men aren't. It's just like, it doesn't make any sense, and we should be empowered by our bodies, not ashamed of them. And so I was really trying to like let out this whole part of this thing that happened to me that I still need to talk to like a police officer about, because I want to press charges against this person, because I just realized how it all happened, because long story, but I had amnesia and I wasn't able to remember anything, and I still don't remember everything, but I put all the pieces together and this person was responsible for it. So yeah, so I wanted to talk about that in the hospital, and no one let me talk about it. Any of the times I was there, it wasn't that kind of place. That's what they even said, that they were here to get me stable, and I was cleared to be stable within 72 hours of being there. And I'm trying to get a light to turn on. Hold on. It's a little bit brighter. I was cleared to be there, or to be gone out of there after 72 hours. And they made me stay. The first time I got out of there easily, and then I still had a house. And then the second time, So the second time, I was still going through the same stuff. I didn't have a job, obviously. This was all like in the same period of like a month that this happened. So I think, yeah, so basically after I went to the hospital, I can't remember the series of events, but that was when someone in my family told me that they had been raped, and someone that I was supposed to protect, someone that I looked to as someone that I was responsible for. And hearing this news was really, really hard for me, and it was like part of my second freak out, I guess you could say. It was more so like I was just determined to cause light to all the stuff that happened to women. And that was when I started making my videos that everyone thought I was crazy for. And then people started calling the cops to make sure I was okay. I had to explain to the cops a couple times that I was okay. And then my brain, for whatever reason, decided that the person who called me said that she was willing to come to the island to help me pack up my stuff and to help me get out of here and whatever, like move, but like I was gonna have to leave my dogs or whatever, and I was like, there's no way. So, but like they made it sound like someone was gonna be on their way to come and see me because everyone thought I was going crazy. So basically I got it in my head that that someone was coming to see me and my family, and I thought that we were kind of playing a joke on each other now, because weird stuff was still happening, and I kept on trying to come up with different ideas of how this could have happened, like maybe my family was playing a joke, and it was like some kind of big thing because my nephew was going to have a baby. And I thought that maybe they were surprising me beforehand, but then they told me that she had the baby, and that, like, really freaked me out, and I thought I had more time, and anyway, there was just reason for me to believe that they were coming to the island to see me, and I thought we were just playing a game, because at this point, after the person told me that she had gotten raped, the first thing I did after we got off the phone was call the police, because I wanted to talk about my rape story. And also, I wanted to say what happened to her, but that was something that I was going to do later. Like, I was still not sure if I wanted to do that, but I wanted to talk about my rape story, because I was like, this is it. This is when it stops. I'm not going to let this stuff happen anymore to people. I want to bring this kind of culture to an end. And got my Lucy light. I look very scary. But I wanted to bring this kind of rape culture to an end, that, like, it's okay for girls to just have to be afraid of telling the truth. And I wanted girls to be able to express themselves in a way that made them feel safe, which is what I was trying to do with my videos, because I was trying to express not just, like, my story, but, like, how it is just for girls having to express what happens to them when it comes to rape or anything to do with, like, domestic abuse, and how it can change someone entirely, and people just don't understand. And so I was trying to express myself so other people could have the courage to express themselves in a way that made, I don't know, them feel like they were in power of their own bodies. And yeah, so I freaked out, saying that if the cops didn't come, this was the only thing that I lied about. And I really shouldn't have said this, but at this point, the cops had been to my house like 3 times already. I had gone to the hospital once, and they didn't do anything to help me. And I was saying, well, now I actually do need your help, so I want to see how long it's going to take for you to show up, because all the other times it took forever and they didn't do anything. So I called my mom and I said, Mom, if the cops don't show up in like half an hour, I'm going to kill myself. And that was the worst thing. Oh, wow, that was weird. That was the worst thing that I could have said. And I really regret saying that, because it hurt my mother. Lucy light number 2, which will work. It really hurt my mother, and I felt very bad about that. But I was trying to see what the police in Hawaii actually do, because this place is so backwards. And so it took them like 45 minutes, an hour or so to show up, and then at this point I was in the forest just waiting to see what they would do, because I said that I wanted to talk about my rape story, and then I had also said that I was starving and I needed food, so if they could bring a pizza and Mountain Dew, because I wanted something to drink. And it was going to be a long time talking about it. I look so scary right now. And so they show up, they look for me for like 10 or 15 minutes, not even. And then they leave. And I was like, really? That's it? Like, when somebody's threatening to kill themselves, that's all you guys do? And, you know, I shouldn't have lied about that, but I was trying to prove a point. And I think I did. They didn't care at all. Like, someone was threatening to kill themselves after all those times that the police had come out to my house and they knew that something was going on with me. When I needed it, they weren't there. Which happens a lot in Hawaii. And so they left, and my dog, Remedy, broke out of the window, and she found me within like 10 minutes, and I just went back inside. But where my front porch was, where I had all this stuff left in a tub, where I was giving them clues to know that I wasn't dead, that I was, like, alive. I made this big poster board, and, like, I had a whole bunch of stuff in it because I thought that if my family was in on this in some way, that they would understand what it was that I was saying. And my family wasn't here. Parts of this make me feel like I was crazy for even imagining that this could be possible, but the way that my family does things, they kind of, like, tease a lot, and they make big deals out of things, and we joke a lot, like, and I don't know, it's been a really long time since we've seen each other, so I really thought it could have been a joke, because they left, instead of pizza and Mountain Dew, they left a rotisserie chicken and Mountain Dew, and I'm a vegetarian, and it's like the thing that everyone in my family makes fun of me for. So I thought for sure then that someone was playing a joke on me, and that, yeah, I just didn't know what was happening. So then I decided that I was going to play a joke on them too, and I, like, booby-trapped the road in front of my house for a car to get caught up in it. And I thought it was going to be my sister. I thought they were, like, in on it with my landlord, and that they were talking about it with my neighbors. And yeah, this part makes me feel like I was definitely out of my mind, and maybe I was, I don't know, but, because I really did believe that they could have been there. I wasn't too far-fetched to think that all of this was, like, a big joke. And, like, maybe not a huge, like, maybe there was still, like, they were coming because they were concerned for me, but I don't know. So I booby-trapped this whole thing, had, like, yarn going back and forth, because I had all this stuff for my nephew, because I was going to send up this, like, thing into the sky for his baby, and long story short, I just had all these craft supplies, and, balloons, and I had it all funny looking, and I dressed up in a costume. I had, like, my snowboard boots on, and I had my dog's muzzle around my neck, because the neighbors were, like, always, like, afraid of her now, saying all this stuff about her, and I thought that they were playing a joke on me too, like, that it was all someone playing a joke on me, like, everyone was in on it. And so I was just trying to, like, scare people, like, in a funny way, because I thought we were playing a joke, and when they started coming down the road, I had eggs with me, and I started throwing eggs at their car, and I was like, come on, get out of the car, like, haha, joke's up on you, whatever, and they didn't get out of the car, and, oh yeah, and then so I was like, oh, come on, it'll be okay, just come on, get out of the car, like, and then I thought we were just joking. And so I had all the stuff necessary to start a fire in my backpack. I mean, just a lighter, and there was, like, newspaper around, or some kind of paper that I used, like tissue paper. And I put it on wet grass. Like, it wasn't a big deal. It was like this big. I'm a Girl Scout. I know how to start fires. I know how to put them out. And then everyone freaked out because I started a fire and they thought I was really out of my mind this time. So I put it out like instantly. And I was like, I'm sorry. I thought I was playing a joke with my family. I really thought my family was on their way. I haven't seen them in a few years and I miss them. And anyway, I was like, I'm gonna clean all this stuff up. I'm really sorry. Like, and I told them I'm okay. And I just went inside my house and I was like, I'm gonna clean this stuff up tomorrow, because I just kind of cried because I thought that my family was coming, and it made me sad, but I wasn't out of my mind though. That's the thing. Like, I really thought that it could have been possible. So maybe call it wishful thinking, call it being manic, whatever, but I thought it could have been possible because of the way that they were talking and the things that they said to me recently. And so it was a misunderstanding. Shouldn't have lit the fire. That was taking it too far. So I'm like in my house, like cleaning up my house because I made a mess. And I just got done watching Twilight, and I'm like singing what's her name? Not Katy Perry, but anyway, the girl who sings the song at the end of Twilight, 1,000 Years. And Christina Perry, I think that's her name. Anyway, and I'm like singing the song, and then the cops show up and they just have their flashlights on, kind of like this, all scary, shining through the window. And I'm like, I didn't even see them pull up. Like, they didn't even have their cop lights on their cars or anything, and I live in the middle of nowhere. It was really scary. And so they're like, we need you to come out here and talk to us. And I was like, what, again? Like, come on. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't do anything that bad. I mean, yeah, I started a fire, but nobody got hurt. It wasn't like, and plus it was on my landlord's property. He told me I could start a fire anytime I wanted to, as long as it was safe. And it was safe, even though it didn't look safe. Whatever. I'm sorry. Anyway, I was just trying to make a joke. And I've always been a little bit of a pyro. It's not my fault. I've been a Girl Scout and I've been camping since I was a little kid. Anyway, nothing would have gotten out of control. But yeah, so that's why the cops showed up, and then they wanted to make sure I was okay. So I go out there and I was like, you guys, last time this happened, you guys put me in the back of your car. I was like, please don't do that. Like, I'm fine. It was just a misunderstanding. I thought my family was in the car, and then, like, the second I got out there, like, he, like, walked behind me and, like, arrested me. And this cop, I was saying to him, I was like, if anything bad happens to my dogs, you're going to be personally responsible. And he was saying that he was going to take care of them himself, if anything. And he was actually really nice, and I was saying, like, this is going to be, like, on you if anything bad happens to my dogs. And he was like, nothing bad's going to happen to your dogs. And he promised me. And that trip was a lot better. He, like, actually put the lights on, and we went fast, and he made sure that the cuffs weren't too tight, and he was a nice person. And he treated me like a human being. And so I was very calm the second time going into the hospital, and I did everything that they wanted, but they still had to inject me with the stuff that I didn't want them to inject me with. And it's so hard to talk about all this. And yeah, so at this point they said that they were going to admit me, whatever. I mean, I was going to stay again, and it ended up being like 9 days that time, 8 or 9 days, and they had the animal control come out and get my dogs, and like the first couple of days, I guess, my landlord took care of them, and then animal control came out and got them, and they were supposed to only stay there 10 days, and they made me stay in the hospital for so much longer than I was supposed to stay. It just was not cool. I don't want to talk about the hospital too much. It was just, I was a number there. I was giving them money by my body being there. They weren't helping me at all. They were just taking my life away. And they made it to where, so when I got out of the hospital, I had like 2 days, I think, to get my dogs out. And that was going to be the 10-day hold that they had before being able to get adopted. And so I got out like the day before my birthday. Felt like I got hit by a bus the next day because they gave me medicine that wasn't supposed to be given to me. And then, yeah, it was like the 30th, so my birthday was the 28th. I was in the hospital that day. 29th, I didn't feel good at all. The 30th, didn't really feel that great either. And then the 1st was the day that I was supposed to go and pick up the dogs. And the things that happened on this day, it's very hard to explain because too many factors went into it. And if it could have just been one thing, totally something else would have happened. But I do believe this is all for a reason. And I know that my dogs are being taken care of, and this is all for me to help all the other dogs here, for me to get the help that I need for my animals, to get them back into my life, and for me to help other people, and for me to help get people to understand that they should treat animals better, especially here in Hawaii, and that we should treat each other better, and it's all for a reason. So, my dad, who moved here last year from San Diego, came here to help me build a house on my property. That was the plan. I didn't know that his alcoholism was as bad as it was, and for a year I was basically supporting him and his alcohol habit, and it was really hard for me to do, like pretty impossible actually. And so I recently, before my breakdown, had sent him to Oahu to get rehab, to go to rehab and to get a couple of surgeries because he had some medical stuff wrong with him. He kept on not going to the rehab places that he was supposed to go to, and life was not really going that well for him, so I was really stressed out about him. But he had told me that he had promised me, he swore he was going to give me $80 to get the dogs out, because that was all it was going to be. To get all of my dogs out was only going to be $80. And he promised me that he was going to send me the money because I had no money. I had no house. My car battery didn't want to start that day, so I ended up walking down to the Humane Society. My phone, I thought my phone was stolen from me. It's hard to explain. I don't know what happened to my phone that day, but I didn't have it with me. I thought my boyfriend took it, and I couldn't find it, and anyway. So I didn't have a phone, and I was using other people's phones to try to get a hold of my dad. Couldn't get a hold of my dad. Got down to the Humane Society. Ended up hearing this little boy talk bad to this dog, calling her a little bitch, pulling her by the neck, and he was not treating her very nicely. And I said, hey, like, what are you doing to that dog? And I got in his face a little, not in his face, I'm a very non-confrontational person, but I had just walked there for like 5 miles in the hot sun, and I was wearing my friend Chris's army hat, he was an Army medic, and he means a lot to me as a person. A lot of bad things happened to him in Afghanistan, and yeah, he's a hero. So I had this hat on that I shouldn't have been wearing, but long story short, I thought Chris had something to do with this too, and I don't know, wearing his hat made me feel safe. Anyway, I asked the kid if he knew what this hat meant, and he called it a maggot hat, which in Hawaii, like a maggot is like a very low person, like a slum person, and he was basically disrespecting the Army and just saying that he was not saying a nice thing. And so I was like, I asked this other kid that was in there, they were volunteering, and I was like, hey, is this kid with you? And he was like, oh, no, that kid's not with me. And I was like, well, somebody needs to teach this kid respect and how to treat a dog because he's not treating her right. And then this other kid came out, and I threatened them. So they say this is where I sound like a crazy person, but because of how I was feeling that the world was coming to an end or whatever was being said to me through the aliens, through the radio, whatever you want to call it, I had some kind of feeling of impending doom. And I had said to them, I was like, if anything happens to my dogs, because I was like, I can't pick them up right now, because I don't have the money yet. If anything happens to my dogs, if my dogs are not here when I get up, I was like, someone's going to die. That's all I said. I wasn't threatening them, but I did say that. And I was saying, and then he even said, what, are you threatening us? And I said, no. I was like, but I know this guy now, talking about God. And I was like, and he's looking out for my dogs, because I just felt like that was the arrangement. Like, I felt it the whole time. Everything that was happening, I felt like there was someone calming me, saying that everything was going to be okay, and the dogs were going to be okay, and yeah, so I was saying to him, no, he's going to make sure that someone's going to die if anything bad happens to my dogs. And that's all that I said. And then I walked to the police station to try to get the police to help me, because I was saying, like, I just can't afford to pick them up. And they told me that they were going to adopt them out. Like, I was trying to tell them about everything that happened to me, and I wanted to get the paperwork from the first 2 times I was taken to the hospital. And then apparently this cop talked to my dad, because I gave him his number, and I don't know if he was playing around with me or whatever, but he talked to my dad, and he said that everything was going to be okay with the Humane Society, and that I was going to be able to get my dogs back. And that's all he really said. He didn't really say anything in particular about, like, what time, when I was going to be able to get them back. And I just was kind of, like, out of my mind, because I was so hot. I hadn't eaten anything. He had bought me a Mountain Dew. He was really nice. And so I left, hoping that I was going to talk to my dad, and then I was going to get them out, like, the next day or something. And then I ended up walking to the movie theater and just saying that my dad was going to pay for the ticket later, because I knew my dad was going to be calling to get a hold of me, and I was like saying, call back to the movie theater, and then I'll pay for my ticket then, but I have to, like, sit down in the air conditioning. And it was like, I just had this, like, sense of confidence that, like, everything was going to be okay, because, like, the thing in my head, whatever, was just kind of telling me that everything was going to be okay. And it's hard to explain without sounding crazy. I know it sounds crazy. And yeah, so I was just like, I'm gonna watch this movie, and it was the Dora the Explorer movie. No one else was in the theater, and then they like let me watch half of it, and then they turned it off, and then I had to come out and talk to the manager, and I ended up breaking down and talking to her about my rape story, because she had this little baby with her, and it was her baby, or her like sister's baby, like that her whole family was there basically while she was working, and they were just like hanging out, and I was like, if anything would have ever happened to your, to your siblings like this, like, you would understand, and this is what's going on with me because of what I just found out, and my dogs are in the or my dogs are in the animal control, and like I was just explaining the whole story, and then these two guys who were all about God and church and stuff, I started talking to this lady about her tattoos, and she started talking to me about God, and she had all these birds on each arm. Some were like alive and lively birds with like growth and life, and on this side it was all like dark birds, like ravens and like death stuff, and it was like all about the balance between life and death, and like it was really cool. And then I started talking to her, and she gave me like this really great hug, and then this guy started asking her about me, and then he ended up talking to me about Blink-182 and told me that he used to drum for Fall Out Boy, and I'm just gullible, and I was like, no way, yeah, you know you didn't, and I was just like, whatever. Anyway, he started talking to me, and he decided to buy me a movie ticket. Him and his brother were going to go see the Abominable Snowman movie, so they invited me to go see it, and it was amazing. It made me cry a lot, especially because of what it was about, and yeah, and then we decided to go down to the beach afterwards. I ended up leaving my backpack there and saying that there was a bomb in the movie theater. I don't know why I said that. I thought it was funny because there was a whole bunch of chocolate in my backpack, and I was saying like, it was, I know it sounds crazy, like everything that I was doing was to challenge like the police and like just how they respond to things in Hawaii, because it's just so backwards here. I don't know what actually happened with that. I think the police came, but it was nothing. I don't think anything actually happened, but it was just me trying to be funny because there was a whole bunch of melted chocolate in my backpack. And it was like a bomb to children if they would have found it. And I know this sounds crazy. Just everything that I did that day it does sound like a manic episode. It does sound like I had all this endless amounts of energy that I don't feel right now. And it's been really hard for me to feel like anything close to that, because first, like, the medicine was suppressing all of it, which is what it's supposed to do, and I'm in like a down cycle. If I do have bipolar disorder, that's what it's called. Like, I'm in a down state. And if I was in a manic episode still, what was happening to me was real. As far as the thoughts that were coming into my head, and like, I just felt like everyone I knew was kind of in my head at the same time. Not everyone, but just certain people, like certain very good people, like people that when I think of, like, they have like good consciousness, good conscience, they have good consciences, and I look up to them. And so these people were like kind of like in my head, and it was just, I just thought everything was going to be okay. And regardless of what's wrong with me, like, that's the point why I'm explaining all of this, is because I want people to understand what was going on in my mind. Maybe I really do need help, who knows? I mean, I do need help, there's a lot of things wrong with me, but I don't think that what they said in the hospital was true. So, anyway, so we ended up going down to the beach, And there was a lady, long story short, lady and a man who were fighting. They looked like they could be on drugs because they had like this camp set up at the beach. It's very common in Hawaii. And she was screaming, and I wanted to help her. And so everyone was like, they were telling me like, what are you doing? Don't go over there. They even said like, oh, she's gonna stab you in the face with a meth needle. And I was like, no, she's not. Like, you know, it's gonna be okay. And I ended up running to this lady to try to save her, because at this point I had walked like 10 miles. I felt so confident with myself about what was happening. I felt like everything was going to be okay, and I felt like I was a soldier, and if my friend Chris could do that in the army, like for miles and miles a day, like I could do what I did. And I was there to save this lady. Like, I was there for a reason, and all I went there to do was to help break up this fight, because he had like a rope wrapped around her arm, and it could have been really bad. But I broke it up, and I got him to walk away, and I walk him to the parking lot, and I get him to calm down, get her to calm down. She smokes a cigarette, and I talk to them separately, and I completely like calm the situation down. And I ended up staying with that lady until like 1 o'clock to, it was like 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, because I wanted to make sure she felt safe. And I helped her move her camp. I got out a lot of aggression. She was like very insightful, and she showed me how there's drones that fly above the beach, which was really weird. Totally a true thing. They fly above all the homeless people at nighttime, and they like videotape them, and they say that it's the security people. They just have drones flying above them. Like, it's not their fault they're homeless. They need help. And they weren't on drugs, or at least she wasn't on drugs. The guy was on drugs, though. So some people are on drugs. Some people do need help with stuff like that, and it doesn't matter. Like, it's a disease. They need help with the diseases that they have, and they aren't bad people. They just do a bad thing. So I was trying to help her. I was just trying to hear her story, and she told me a lot of stuff, and she was like one of the strongest women I've ever met. And I smoked my first cigarette